10 years of silent grief, shattered by a maid's young daughter. Staring at his lost son's portrait, she whispers, "Sir, this boy. He lived with me at the orphanage." For 10 years, billionaire Harrison Cole lived as a ghost in his own home, his vast wealth a hollow armor against a grief that consumed him. It was an anniversary of a loss that stole the laughter from his halls. His son, Ethan, was just a memory, a smiling 4-year-old boy captured in a portrait above the mantel. A light long extinguished. Then, a sound broke the suffocating stillness. The new maid's daughter, a child in a place where children were a painful reminder. She wasn't looking at the powerful, broken man. She was frozen, her eyes fixed on the painting. And with a whisper, she took a hammer to the stone tomb of his heart. "Sir, this boy, he lived with me in the orphanage." And before we start, where in the world are you watching from today? Let me know in the comments. Enjoy the story. A forgotten portrait held the key to a decade of silence. Harrison Cole believed his son was gone forever, but his new maid's daughter knew a secret hidden in the painted eyes. The grand hallway of Greywood Manor was silent. The only sound was the distant ticking of a French regulator clock, counting the seconds of a life half-lived. Harrison Cole stood before the massive limestone fireplace, a ghost in his own home. It was the anniversary. 10 years. 10 years since the laughter had been stolen from these halls. 10 years since his son, Ethan, had vanished from a sunlit city park. Harrison was a man who commanded the coastline. His name was etched onto skyscrapers and sprawling coastal developments. He was a billionaire. He was powerful. And he was utterly broken. The wealth was an armor, but the grief was a cancer beneath it. His gaze, as it always did, locked onto the portrait above the mantel. It was a painting of a 4-year-old boy, commissioned just weeks before he was taken. The boy had Harrison's dark, serious hair, but his mother's bright, impossibly curious eyes. He was smiling, his small hand clutching a wooden sailboat. The artist had captured the light in him, a light that had been extinguished. A small sound, a shuffling of feet, broke the suffocating stillness. Harrison turned, his irritation a cold, sharp blade. He had given strict orders. He was not to be disturbed. Not today. It was the new maid, Brenda, a quiet, diligent woman who had started 2 weeks ago. She was clutching a dust rag, her face pale with fright. She was not supposed to be in this wing. And she was not alone. Hiding half behind her, a small, thin girl with large blue eyes and a spill of blonde hair stared at him. She looked to be about 12. "Mr. Cole." "Sir, I am so sorry," Brenda whispered, her voice trembling. "My car. It broke down this morning. I had no one. I told her to stay in the kitchen." "Chloe, I told you." Harrison's glare was ice. He did not like children. Not anymore. They were a painful reminder of a life that was not his. "The kitchen is downstairs, Brenda. See that she returns to it." "Yes, sir. Right away. Come on, Chloe. Now." Brenda's voice was a low, terrified hiss. She tugged at the girl's arm. But the girl, Chloe, didn't move. She was frozen. She wasn't looking at Harrison, or the fireplace, or the vast, intimidating room. Her eyes were fixed on the portrait, her head tilted, her expression shifting from curiosity to a deep, profound confusion. It was as if she were trying to place a memory that didn't belong. "Chloe," Brenda pleaded, pulling harder. "We have to go." The girl took one step, then another, moving away from her mother and toward the fireplace. She stopped just short of the hearth, looking up at the painting of the smiling 4-year-old. "That's enough," Harrison said. His voice was not loud, but it cracked like a whip. "That is a private room. You will leave." Chloe turned to him. Her face was ashen. Her blue eyes were wide, not with fear of him, but with a startling, impossible recognition. "Sir," the girl whispered, her voice shaking. "This boy, he lived with me in the orphanage." The words echoed in the cavernous hall. Brenda let out a strangled cry, her hand flying to her mouth. "Chloe, stop this. What are you saying? That is Mr. Cole's son. Apologize to him right now." The air left Harrison's lungs. The floor seemed to drop away. He felt the blood drain from his face, a cold, prickling sensation that left him dizzy. He gripped the back of a leather armchair. Billionaire's face went pale. A headline might have screamed. It was true. He felt sick. "What did you say?" His voice was a rasp. "Chloe, you're mistaken." Brenda wept, her eyes frantic. She knew the story. Everyone who worked here did. The unspeakable tragedy of Harrison Cole. That boy, he passed away. Years ago. No, Chloe insisted. She was trembling, but her gaze was steady. He didn't pass away. He was at St. Jude's home. I knew him. We called him Matthew. Harrison stared. He saw his wife's face, pale and thin on a hospital pillow. He's gone, Harrison. Let him go. He had spent 10 years building a tomb around his heart. Now, a 12-year-old girl was taking a hammer to the stone. That is impossible, Harrison said, the words hollow. My son is dead. He isn't. Chloe cried, stung by his tone. He was older when I knew him. But it's him. I know it's him. He had the same eyes. He used to draw pictures. All the time. Pictures of the ocean. And a big, brown dog. Harrison staggered. He physically recoiled, as if she had struck him. A brown dog. Buddy. A chocolate Labrador. Ethan's shadow. A detail so specific, so private. It was never released to the press. The media knew kidnapped. They knew ransom note. They knew presumed dead. They did not know Buddy. You're lying, he whispered, but the accusation had no power. I am not. He was my friend. Chloe's eyes filled with tears. He protected me. They called him Mute Matthew because he didn't talk. Not for a long time. But he talked to me. He said he wasn't an orphan. He said his real name started with an E, but he couldn't remember it. He said his dad was rich and was going to come for him. But no one believed him. Brenda was openly sobbing. Mr. Cole, please, she's my adopted daughter. I got her from St. Jude's 3 years ago. I used to volunteer there. Harrison's head snapped toward Brenda. You adopted her? Yes, sir, Brenda said, wiping her eyes. She was there since she was 5. I met her while I was volunteering. I adopted her when I was finally able. Please, she gets confused sometimes. Harrison's mind was racing. Adopted. From St. Jude's. The same place as. He straightened his suit jacket, his hands shaking so violently he balled them into fists. Brenda, take your daughter to my study. Now. He turned and looked back at the portrait. The smiling boy. The lost light. He said his dad was rich and was going to come for him. A decade of ice around his heart began to crack. Harrison's study was a tomb of dark mahogany and unread leather-bound books. It smelled of old money and stale air. A single lamp cast a pool of light on the massive desk. Brenda guided Chloe to a stiff-backed chair. Chloe sat on the edge, her feet not touching the rug. Brenda stood by the door, twisting a dust rag, her eyes darting between her daughter and employer. Harrison Cole did not sit. He stood by the cold, unlit fireplace, his back to them for a long moment. He was trying to breathe. 10 years. 10 years of ghosts. 10 years of slamming doors on hope, because hope was a poison. It was the thing that had destroyed his wife. Eleanor had chased every lead, visited every psychic, paid every fraud who promised a vision. It had hollowed her out until she was nothing but a fragile whisper, and then silence. Harrison had chosen a different path. He had entombed his grief. He had accepted the unacceptance. And now this child, this 12-year-old girl with eyes as blue and clear as a winter sky. He turned, his face a mask of control. Start from the beginning. Don't leave anything out. Chloe swallowed. The room was so quiet she could hear the heavy tick-tock of the grandfather clock in the hall. I was 5 when I went to St. Jude's, Chloe began, her voice small. I don't remember my birth parents. Mama. Brenda. She's the only mom I've ever really had. I met her when she was a volunteer. She adopted me 3 years ago. But before that, I was at St. Jude's. And the boy, Harrison said, his voice flat. Tell me about the boy. They called him Matthew, Chloe said. He was already there when I got there. He was in the older boys' dorm. I think he was maybe 9 or 10 then. He was really quiet. The nuns called him Mute Matthew because he didn't talk. Not for a long, long time. Harrison's heart hammered against his ribs. Ethan had been a talkative, bright, noisy child. Mute Matthew. What trauma could do that to a boy? He would just sit by the window in the recreation room. Chloe continued, her gaze distant, lost in the memory. He would draw. He drew all the time. He drew on scrap paper, on napkins, once on the wall, and Sister Agnes was so mad. But he was good. He drew houses, big houses, and the ocean. Harrison's breath hitched. The beach house. And he drew dogs, Chloe said, her voice dropping. A big brown dog. He told me. After he started talking, he told me. What? Harrison's voice was sharp. What did he tell you? He told me he missed his dog. He said his name was Buddy. Brenda let out a small sob and covered her mouth. Harrison felt his knees weaken. Buddy. It was true. A detail so small, so private. He said Buddy loved to run on the beach, Chloe added, and chase seagulls. He said the dog would bark and bark, but the birds were too fast. It was a perfect memory, a snapshot from a life that was stolen. Harrison remembered it. A sunny afternoon at the coast house. Ethan, just turned 4, laughing hysterically as Buddy chased a flock of gulls at the water's edge. He said the dog would bark and bark. How? Harrison struggled to speak. How do you know this boy? Matthew is the boy in the painting. His eyes, Chloe said simply. I never forget eyes. And in this. She reached into the pocket of her simple dress and pulled out a small, folded piece of paper. It was old, the creases worn through. It was a child's drawing. She handed it to him. Harrison's hand was shaking so badly he could barely take it. He unfolded it. It was a crude drawing, done in crayon. A stick figure of a small girl with yellow hair, holding hands with a taller stick figure boy. Above them, a large, poorly drawn dog with brown scribbles. He gave it to me, Chloe whispered. I was crying because one of the older boys, Dennis, he tried to take my locket. She touched a thin silver chain around her neck. Harrison's eyes followed the movement. Where did you get that? He asked. My grandpa, Chloe said, her chin lifting with a bit of pride. Mama's dad, Captain Elias Reed. He's a war veteran. He came with Mama to volunteer at St. Jude's one day. He met me. He said I was a brave soldier. He gave me this locket and told me to never forget it. Brenda spoke, her voice shaky. My father, he saw something in her. He told me, that one's a fighter, Brenda. That's when I knew I had to adopt her. It took me almost a year after that to get the paperwork through. Harrison nodded. Elias Reed. He knew that name. A decorated local hero. A man known for his rigid honesty and unbendable will. This was not a family of liars. Matthew gave me the drawing. Chloe continued, looking back at the paper in Harrison's hand. He didn't say anything to Dennis. He just stood in front of me. He stared at him. He didn't even look mad. He just looked, like my grandpa does sometimes. Dennis got scared and gave my locket back. Matthew gave me this drawing after. He said it was so I would remember I had a protector. Harrison stared at the drawing. A protector. His son, who he had failed to protect. You said? Brenda adopted you 3 years ago, Harrison said, his mind working. What happened to Matthew? He ran away, Chloe said softly. It was about a week before Mama came to get me. So, yes, about 3 years ago. He was getting older. He would have been 13 or 14. He hated it there. He told me he was going to find his real house. He said he remembered a gate. A big, black iron gate with a letter on it. Harrison's gaze flew to the window, to the massive, winding driveway, and the wrought iron gates at the entrance. The gates that bore a single, stylized C for coal. He told me he was going to find his dad, Chloe said, her eyes filling with tears. And then he was gone. The nun said he ran away. I never saw him again. Harrison felt a surge of rage so powerful it almost knocked him off his feet. Rage at the kidnappers, at the police, at the world, and at this orphanage. St. Jude's home, Harrison said, his voice low and dangerous. Where is it? He was already moving to his desk, grabbing his phone. He would call his head of security, David. He would call the police commissioner. Sir, Brenda said, her voice shaking with fear. That's the other thing. Harrison paused, the phone in his hand. Chloe looked at the floor. You can't go there, sir. It's gone. Gone? What do you mean, gone? It burned down, Chloe whispered. About a week after Matthew ran away. It was a big fire. Everything was gone. The records, the rooms, everything. That's why Mama came to get me so fast. The county was moving all us kids. She filed the adoption papers just in time. The room was silent again, but this was not the silence of grief. It was the silence of a conspiracy. A boy who knows too much runs away. A week later, the entire orphanage, all the records, all the proof of his existence, burns to the ground. It wasn't a tragedy. It was a cleanup. Harrison looked at Chloe. She was just a child. But she wasn't just a maid's daughter anymore. She was the only living link to his son. Brenda, Harrison said, his voice cold and clear. You and your daughter will not be returning to the staff quarters. You will move into the East guest wing. Tonight. Brenda's eyes went wide. Sir? I don't understand. You are not my maid anymore, Harrison said. He looked at Chloe, at the worn-out drawing still clutched in his hand. You are under my protection. And you, he said to Chloe, are going to help me find my son. The command was so absolute. Brenda could only nod, her hand clutching Chloe's shoulder. Mr. Cole, you don't have to. She started. This is not a request, Brenda. It is a necessity. Harrison's voice was flat, cutting off her protest. If what your daughter says is true, and I am beginning to believe it is, then she is the only person alive who can identify my son. That makes her a target. The color drained from Brenda's face. She hadn't thought of that. Harrison saw a threat, a loose end in a 10-year-old plot. A target. Brenda whispered, pulling Chloe closer. The fire, Harrison said, his mind working like a cold engine. Tell me about the fire. It was on the news, Brenda said, trying to remember. They said it was an accident. Old wiring. It was the main building, the administration offices. It happened very late at night. The offices, Harrison repeated. Not the dormitories? Chloe shook her head. No, sir. We were safe. But Sister Agnes, the head nun, she was crying so hard the next day. She kept saying, it's all gone. 30 years of history, the records, all gone. That's when all the kids had to be moved. It was chaos. Harrison nodded slowly. A surgical fire. An accident that conveniently destroyed only the proof. This was no accident. This was a message. I need to speak with your father, Harrison said to Brenda. Captain Reed. Does he live with you? Yes, sir. In our apartment. He's retired. He doesn't trust people easily, sir. Especially wealthy people. Good, Harrison said. A small, grim smile touched his lips. A man who doesn't trust easily is exactly what I need right now. He turned to his desk, his mind made up. The fog of grief was burning away, replaced by the white-hot fire of purpose. Brenda, take Chloe to the kitchen. My head housekeeper, Mrs. Davies, will get you food. I will have my head of security, David, meet you there. He will show you to the East Wing. You will not speak of this to any other staff. You will not answer any questions. Your job as a maid is finished. You understand. Brenda, terrified but seeing the iron resolve in his eyes, nodded. Yes, sir. She started to lead Chloe out, but Harrison's voice stopped them. Chloe. The girl turned. Harrison walked around the desk and, awkwardly, knelt. It was an unfamiliar movement. He hadn't been on eye level with a child in a decade. The hope he felt was so new it was agonizing. You did a very brave thing today, he said, his voice rough. I just told the truth, sir, Chloe whispered. Grandpa says the truth is a shield. Harrison stared at her. The truth is a shield. He's a wise man. I need you to be brave for a little while longer. I'm going to have David talk to you. I need you to tell him everything you told me. Every single detail about Matthew. Can you do that? Chloe clutched her locket and nodded. Will you find him? The question was so simple, so pure. It hit Harrison harder than any corporate negotiation. He stood up, his face hardening into a mask of determination. If he is alive, Harrison Cole said, I will tear the world apart until I do. Brenda and Chloe left, the heavy door clicking shut behind them. Harrison stood alone in the study for a long moment, his hand resting on the phone. He looked at the portrait, the smiling boy. Ethan. Matthew. You protected her, he whispered to the painting. Now I will protect her. And I will find you. I swear on your mother's grave, I will find you. He picked up the secure line on his desk and pressed a single button. David, clear my schedule. For the rest of the month. No, I don't care about the Tokyo deal. Cancel it. I have a situation at the manor. A private matter. I need you to move the new maid, Brenda, and her daughter, Chloe, to the East Wing. They are my personal guests. Put 2 men on that wing. No one in or out without my authorization. Yes, David, I am serious. He paused, his eyes fixed on the painting. And get me everything, and I mean everything. On a fire at St. Jude's Home for Children 3 years ago. I want the police report, the insurance claim, the fire marshal's investigation. And I want to know who owned that building. Now, he pressed another button. Send a car for Captain Elias Reed. Tell him it's about his granddaughter. Tell him it's an emergency. The kitchen was larger than their apartment, a vast space of steel, marble, and hanging copper pots. Mrs. Davies, The loyal head housekeeper was confused. Mr. Cole was very specific, Mrs. Davies said, placing 2 plates of roast beef on the island. He said you are to be treated as guests. It looked like a feast to Brenda. Mrs. Davies, Brenda started, wringing her hands. I don't know what's happening. It is not my place to know, Brenda, Mrs. Davies said, not unkindly. And it is not yours to question. Eat. You both look like you've seen a ghost. Chloe, who had been silent, looked up at that. Maybe we did, she whispered. Before Mrs. Davies could reply, a man entered. He wore a dark suit, his eyes missing nothing. He had a quiet, dangerous calm. My name is David. I'm Mr. Cole's head of security. If you'll come with me, I'll show you to your suite. My father. He's coming, Brenda said, her voice shaking. Yes, we sent a car for him. He will be brought to the study to meet Mr. Cole. I will take you to the East Wing. It's the safest place in the house. Safest. The word hung in the air, cold and heavy. The East Wing suite was a world away from the staff quarters. It had a sitting room, a fireplace, and 2 large bedrooms. Chloe walked to the window. It overlooked a vast, dark garden. Mama, Chloe said. I'm scared. Brenda rushed to her side, hugging her tight. It's okay, baby. We're okay. Mr. Cole, he just wants to find his son. You did a good thing. David stood by the door. A man is stationed in the hall for your protection. Please don't leave the suite. Your meals will be brought to you. Brenda nodded, her face pale. It's like a prison. It's a safe room, ma'am, David said. Mr. Cole believes your daughter's memory has made you both very valuable and very vulnerable. Good evening. He closed the door, and they heard the soft click of the lock. In the study, Harrison stood opposite Captain Elias Reed. Elias was in his 70s, thin and weathered, with a steel spine and piercing blue eyes that held no fear. A billionaire did not impress him. My daughter is in your house, Elias said, his voice firm. She called me, crying. She said you put guards on her door. I don't like my family being held. Captain Reed, thank you for coming. Please sit. I'll stand, Elias said. They are not being held, Harrison said. They are being protected. Protected from what? From you? You rich men think you can just buy people. Move them around like pieces on a board. This has nothing to do with my money, Harrison said, his voice low. It has to do with my son. Your granddaughter, Chloe, she believes she knew him. Elias's expression was steady. I know what she said. Chloe doesn't lie. But she's a child. It's a sad thing, Mr. Cole, but probably a mistake. She knew about his dog, Harrison said. Elias went still. She knew his name was Buddy. Harrison continued. She knew he chased seagulls on the beach. That was not in any newspaper. It was a private family memory. The old captain's eyes narrowed. As a military man, he understood the value of facts. A brown dog, Elias murmured. She told me about the boy, the one who protected her, the one who drew pictures. Your granddaughter, Harrison said, is the first credible lead I have had in 10 years. She told me the orphanage, St. Jude's, burned down 3 years ago, just 1 week after my son, Matthew, ran away. Elias Reed was no fool. He had survived a war by learning to smell a trap. A fire, Elias said. To cover the tracks. To burn the records. Exactly. Which means whoever took my son knows he was there. And if they find out that a little girl remembers him, that she can identify him, then the girl is a target. A loose end. The old soldier looked at the billionaire. For the first time, they were not 2 men from different worlds. They were 2 men with a shared purpose. What's your plan? Elias asked. My head of security, David, is on his way to debrief Chloe. I'd like you to be there. She trusts you. She'll need you. And what are you doing? I'm finding out who lit the match, Harrison said. David entered with a file, looking at Harrison and the captain. Sir, the preliminary report on the fire. Go on, Harrison said. St. Jude's Home for Children. The fire was 3 years ago. The official report, signed by Fire Marshal Peters, ruled it accidental. Faulty electrical wiring. The building was a total loss. An accident, Harrison said. I ran a check on Marshal Peters, David said, his voice flat. He filed for early retirement 2 weeks after signing that report. He moved to a waterfront condo in Florida. Paid cash. Bought a 40-foot fishing boat. Also cash. On a fire marshal's salary. Elias let out a low, grim sound. He was paid off. A cleanup. It gets worse, sir, David said, opening the file. I checked the property records. St. Jude's wasn't owned by the diocese. It was owned by a non-profit foundation. What foundation? Harrison asked. David looked at his boss. It was called the Evergreen Foundation, a charitable trust. I ran the name. And its primary donor, its only donor for the last 15 years, was a holding company registered in Delaware. A cold dread, worse than the grief, settled in Harrison's stomach. What holding company, David? David looked down at the paper. It was a subsidiary of Coal Development, sir. Your company. The room was absolutely silent. The clock ticked in the hall. Elias stared at Harrison. What did he say? Harrison's face was white. He felt the blood pounding in his temples. He walked to his desk and gripped the edge. He said, Harrison's voice was a low, shaking growl, that someone used my own money to fund the orphanage that was hiding my son. The implication was horrifying. The kidnappers weren't strangers. The enemy wasn't outside the gates. The call was coming from inside the house. A single drop of sweat rolled down Harrison's temple. The room was not warm, but he felt like he was suffocating. His own company, his own money. For 10 years, he had been paying to keep his own son hidden. The betrayal was so deep, so complete, it was almost paralyzing. Elias Reed spoke first. Mr. Cole, you've had a viper in your nest for a decade. Harrison looked at the old captain, his eyes burning. A viper, he repeated. Yes, and I will cut its head off. He slammed the intercom. David. Now, David entered, his face grim. He knew what the file meant. Who? Harrison's voice was barely a whisper, but it carried the weight of a death sentence. Who in my company authorized the Evergreen Foundation? Who signed the checks? Sir, that's a subsidiary, David said, phone in hand. It's managed by the Charitable Accounts Division, overseen by. Don't tell me who oversees it. Harrison roared, his control finally snapping. I want the name of the person who created the account. The name of the person who approved the payments. I don't care if you have to wake up every accountant and lawyer in this city. I want that name on my desk in 1 hour. Yes, sir, David said, turning to leave. Wait, Elias said. David and Harrison both looked at him. You're going at this like a businessman, Elias said to Harrison. You're trying to find the money. That's good, but you're forgetting the heart. The girl. Harrison's anger cooled, replaced by the cold, sharp focus of the problem. What about her? She's the only one who has seen him, Elias said. What did life look like in that place? Who was in charge? Who came to visit? Those are the details that will find your boy. Harrison nodded. The old man was right. David, you're with me on the finances. Send 2 of your best men you trust with your life, to the East Wing. I want them to talk to Chloe. And I want you, he said, looking at Elias, to be in that room. She trusts you. She'll need you. Elias nodded. I'll go now. No, Harrison said. Wait for David's men. No one moves in this house alone tonight. Not until I know who the enemy is. In the East Wing, the silence was tense. Chloe sat on the carpet, knees to her chest. Brenda paced by the cold fireplace. Grandpa, Chloe cried, running and throwing her arms around Elias's waist as he entered. Elias hugged her tight. Brenda, you all right? We're scared, Dad, Brenda whispered. I know, but you're safe here. Behind him stood 2 large men in dark suits, their faces blank. These gentlemen are here to ask Chloe some questions, Elias said, guiding Chloe to the sofa. They work for Mr. Cole. I'll be right here with you. You just need to tell them what you remember. One man, Robert, sat opposite Chloe while the other stood by the door. Robert had a kind face, but his eyes saw everything. Chloe, Robert began, his voice gentle. We just want to talk about St. Jude's. About your friend, Matthew. Okay, she said. You said Sister Agnes was the head nun. Can you describe her? Chloe thought. She was very old and wrinkly. She wasn't mean, but she was scared. I remember that. Scared? Elias asked. Scared of what? Of the visitors, Chloe said. Robert's pen stopped moving. Who were the visitors, Chloe? They weren't for us, Chloe said, shaking her head. They were for Sister Agnes. They came at night sometimes. In a big, black car. It was very quiet. A black car, Robert repeated. Did you ever see the people in the car? Only once. Chloe's voice dropped. I had a stomachache. I was in the infirmary on the 1st floor. I was looking out the window. The car pulled up. It was late. What did you see? A man got out. He was very tall. He was wearing a hat. And he had a ring. I remember because it shined when he pointed his finger at Sister Agnes. She looked like she was going to cry. A ring, Robert said, leaning forward. What did it look like? It was big, gold, and it had a green stone in the middle, a dark green stone. He scared me. He looked up and I hid. I felt like he saw me, even in the dark. Elias put a protective arm around her. It's okay, soldier. You're safe. Did Matthew ever see this man? Robert asked. Chloe nodded. I think so. That's why he was scared. When he talked about them, he said they were liars. He said Sister Agnes was a liar. He said, they pretend to be good, but they're monsters. That's what he said. Did Matthew ever say anything else about his home? Robert asked. Just the dog, and the ocean, and the gate with the letters C, Chloe said. And his mother. He told me he missed his mother. He said she smelled like flowers. Back in the study, Harrison was pacing. The 1-hour deadline had passed. It was now 10 p.m. The secure line on his desk buzzed. He snatched it. David, tell me. I have the name, sir. The Evergreen Foundation was chartered 15 years ago. The funds from our company were routed through 3 different accounts. But the signatory, the man who set it all up and approved the biannual donations, it was Richard Powell. Harrison dropped the phone. It clattered against the desk. Richard Powell, his brother-in-law, his late wife's brother, Uncle Richard, the man who stood by him at Eleanor's funeral, who wept and called Ethan the son he never had. The man who ran the charitable arm of coal development, a position Harrison had given him. He was here, Harrison whispered. He was here this afternoon. For the anniversary. Richard had come by, as he did every year. 10 years, Harrison. You should let him go. Eleanor would want you to find peace. Peace. The man had told him to find peace while he was actively, knowingly hiding his son. The door opened. It was David. He looked at Harrison's face and knew. You heard, David said. Richard, Harrison said, the name tasting like ash. It was Richard. Sir, there's more. The report from the East Wing just came in. Harrison's mind was consumed. What did the girl say? She said a man visited the orphanage. A tall man. He terrified Sister Agnes. He came at night, in a black car. She said he wore a ring, sir, David said, his voice quiet. A large, gold ring, with a dark green stone. Harrison froze. His eyes drifted to the side table. It was covered in silver-framed photographs. Him and Eleanor. Ethan on the beach. And a picture from the last company gala. Him, Eleanor, and her brother, Richard, smiling. Harrison picked up the frame. His hand was shaking. He looked at Richard's hand, resting on Eleanor's shoulder. On his right pinky finger was a large, gold signet ring. The family crest. In the center was a dark green, square-cut emerald. I'm going to kill him, Harrison whispered. Sir, David said. We have to be smart. This is a 10-year conspiracy. He's a monster. He took your son and destroyed your wife. The fire, Harrison said, his voice hardening. He had the fire marshal paid off. He had access, David said. He had the motive. He always thought you cheated Eleanor. He thought the coal fortune should have been split. So he stole my son, Harrison said. He let my wife die of a broken heart. He let me rot in this house. All for money. And now he knows, David said, his voice low. Or he will soon. The new maid and her daughter. Moved to the East Wing. Guards on their door. You, clearing your schedule. He's not stupid, sir. He's a snake. He will know something is wrong. He will know his secret is threatened. Harrison's eyes met David's. Chloe, Harrison said. He's going to go after the girl. The blood in Harrison's veins turned to ice. He had an enemy. He had a name. And that enemy was family. He will go after the girl, Harrison repeated. He won't get to her, sir, David said, his tone flat. The East Wing is locked down. My men are the best I have. But he will try. And he won't be obvious. Harrison's mind was a whirlwind of betrayal. He knows this house. He knows the staff. He knows me. He knows your habits, David agreed. Today is the anniversary. He expects you to be a wreck. He expects you to be locked in this study, drinking. He expects you to be weak. Harrison looked at the portrait of his son. Weak. He had been weak for 10 years. Not anymore. That's your cover, sir, David said. You play the part of the broken man. I will handle the investigation. I need to find Richard's network. The fire marshal was one. Sister Agnes. Where is she now? Find her, Harrison ordered. And find out where Richard Powell is right now. David nodded and left. Harrison was alone again. He looked at the silver-framed photograph. Him, Eleanor, and Richard. Richard's hand, resting on his sister's shoulder, wore the heavy, green-stoned ring. You sat at my table, Harrison thought, his rage of physical sickness. You drank my wine. You wept at your sister's funeral. You told me to find peace. The private line on his desk buzzed. R. Powell. His heart hammered. The snake was calling. He was checking the trap. Harrison let it ring. Once. Twice. He took a deep, shuddering breath. He closed his eyes, summoning the ghost of his grief, using it as a shield. He picked up the receiver. Richard, he said. His voice was gravelly, thick with exhaustion. A perfect performance. Harrison. Thank God. I was just checking on you. Richard's voice was smooth. Oily. Practice sympathy. A difficult day, I know. I wasn't sure if I should call. Liar. You're fishing. It's fine, Richard, Harrison mumbled. Just another year. You know. I know. I know. A pause. Listen, I'm glad I caught you. Bob Henderson heard you canceled the Tokyo trip. Is everything all right? You're not ill, are you? There it was. The hook. He knew Harrison had changed his routine. Harrison forced a long, weary sigh. I'm just tired, Richard. Tired of all of it. I just didn't have it in me. Not today. Another pause. Richard was processing this. It sounded plausible. Of course, Richard said, his voice dripping with false concern. I understand completely. That's why I'm calling. Why don't I come over? We can have a drink. Just the two of us. For Eleanor. For the boy. Harrison's hand tightened on the receiver. Come over? He wanted to see the house. He wanted to know what was different. No. Harrison said it too quickly. He softened his tone. No, Richard. I appreciate it. But I'm turning in. I just want to be alone. Are you sure, Harrison? I'm only 10 minutes away. I'm sure, Harrison said, his voice firm but weary. Thank you, Richard. Good night. He hung up. He was shaking, not with fear, but with rage. He didn't believe me, Harrison said to the empty room. He's coming. He buzzed David on the intercom. He's on his way. Powell. He's coming to the house. He suspects something. Let him come, sir, David's voice replied, calm and cold. The guards in the East Wing are dressed as maintenance. He won't see anything. But the perimeter team is active. We'll track him when he leaves. Just play the part. Be the grieving widower. In the East Wing, Elias Reed turned to his daughter and granddaughter, his face grim. Brenda, the girl isn't just a witness. She's a soldier in this. She just fired the first shot. Now we need to give her the rest of her ammunition. He sat down on the sofa next to Chloe. Chloe, you did well with those men. But I want you to think. Not about the scary things. I want you to think about Matthew. I do, Grandpa. I know. But think harder. You remember details. You said he drew pictures of the ocean. Did he ever say where? Chloe frowned. He said, the house on the water. He said his mama loved it. He said, there were white chairs on the porch. And a bird. A bird? Elias asked. A wooden bird. On a pole. It spun in the wind. A white one. He said his dad put it there. He said he could see it from his bedroom window. He said it made him feel safe. Elias's eyes widened. Brenda, does Mr. Cole have a beach house? I think so, Dad. It's in the file. We need to tell Mr. Cole, Elias said. That's real intelligence. Just then, Chloe gasped, her hand flying to her locket. What is it, Chloe? Brenda asked. The name, she whispered. I remember something else. Matthew. He wasn't just Matthew. He told me his name was Matthew. Ethan. He told me why. Her eyes grew wide with an old fear. Why, honey? Because of the man with the ring. Chloe said, trembling. Matthew was hiding under a bed. The man was yelling at Sister Agnes. He called him Uncle. And he told her, you will call him Matthew. Ethan is gone. Ethan Cole is dead and buried. Do you understand me? And Sister Agnes, she cried and said yes. Elias Reed closed his eyes. The final piece. Uncle, we have to call Mr. Cole, Brenda said. No, Elias said. The phones could be. I'll tell the guard. He can relay the message. Stay here. Lock the door behind me. Downstairs, the front doorbell rang. The sound echoed in the foyer. Mrs. Davies, her face pale, went to answer it. Harrison stood in the deep shadow of the main staircase, his heart a cold stone. The heavy oak door swung open. Richard Powell stood on the step, a sad smile on his face. He held a bottle of expensive whiskey. Richard, sir, Mrs. Davies stammered. Mr. Cole said he was retiring. Nonsense, Davies, Richard said, stepping past her, his eyes scanning the space. He needs family on a night like this. He walked into the hall. It was quiet. Too quiet. Harrison, he called out. Harrison stepped from the shadows. His face was a mask of utter grief. Richard, I told you. I just want to be alone. And I'm telling you, you're not going to be, Richard said. He walked forward, clasping Harrison's shoulder. Harrison had to use every ounce of self-control not to flinch. We'll have one drink. To them. To Eleanor. To Ethan. Richard's eyes were busy, scanning the hallways, looking for anything out of place. He saw nothing. Fine, Harrison said, his voice a broken whisper. He turned toward the study. One drink. As they walked, Richard glanced toward the east wing. Place seems dead tonight, Richard said casually. Gave the staff the night off? Something like that, Harrison murmured, pushing open the study door. It's good to be alone. But not too alone, Richard said, following him in. Harrison moved to the crystal decanters. What are you? Oh, you brought your own. Only the best, Richard said, setting the bottle on Harrison's massive desk. As he did, his eyes landed on the small, folded, crayon drawing. Harrison's heart stopped. He had left it out. A stupid, careless mistake. Richard reached for it. What's this? A child's. Don't. Harrison snapped. The word was too sharp. Richard froze, his hand hovering over the paper. He slowly turned his head, his polite mask gone. He looked at Harrison. Harrison realized his mistake. He closed his eyes, faking a wave of pain. It's just an old thing. One of Ethan's. I found it in a box today. Please, Richard. Just leave it. Richard's eyes narrowed. He looked at the drawing. A blonde girl, a taller boy, a brown dog. He didn't remember Ethan knowing any blonde girls. Of course, Richard said slowly, pulling his hand back. He forced the smile to return, but his eyes were cold. Dead. Of course. My apologies. An old memory. He knew. He didn't know what he knew, but he knew something was wrong. He knew that drawing was a lie, and he knew Harrison was lying to him. The snake was in the room, and it was rattled. The air in the study was thick. Richard's smile was a thin, brittle mask. An old memory, Richard repeated. He moved toward the fireplace, his eyes landing on Ethan's portrait. He was a beautiful boy, Harrison. So much like Eleanor. It's a blessing she's not here to see this. This emptiness. It was a deliberate jab. He was testing Harrison's grief. Harrison flinched, but from the effort of not lunging at the man. We all miss her, Harrison managed. He walked to the decanter. A drink. You said one drink. Yes, one drink. Richard's eyes followed him. It's just, I worry about you, Harrison. Canceling the Tokyo trip. Hiding away. And now, finding old drawings. He paused. Are you sure that's what it is? It looks new. The crayon is fresh. Harrison's blood ran cold. He was a father, not a detective. It was in a box, Harrison said, his voice flat. With his other things. I don't care. He poured 2 glasses of whiskey, his hand visibly shaking. He let it shake. He needed to be the wreck. He handed a glass to Richard. Their fingers almost touched. Richard's hand was warm, the hand that wore the green-stoned ring. To Eleanor, Richard said, raising his glass. And to Ethan, may they finally be at peace. Harrison could not speak. He could not drink. He raised the glass to his lips, but the whiskey smelled like poison. He put the glass down, untouched. I can't, Harrison whispered, turning away. I'm sorry, Richard. You should go. I'm not good company tonight. Richard watched him. He saw the untouched glass, the tremor, the agony. He sighed, a long-suffering sound. You're right. I'm sorry. He put his own glass down on the desk, next to the drawing. I pushed. I'll see myself out. Thank you, Harrison said, not looking at him. Get some rest, Harrison, Richard said softly. He walked to the door. He paused. Oh, by the way, I heard you hired a new maid. Brenda, isn't it? How is she working out? Harrison's head snapped up. The question was not casual. It was a sniper's bullet. He knew about Brenda. He was connecting the dots. The new maid. The canceled trip. The new old drawing. Richard's face was a mask of polite inquiry. She's fine, Harrison said, his voice tight. Just a maid. Of course, Richard smiled. It's just, I heard she had a daughter. A little blonde girl. About 12, I think. I'm surprised you'd allow a child in the house, Harrison. After, well, you know. He knew. He knew everything. She stays in the kitchen, Harrison said, his voice hardening. It was an emergency. Her car broke down. An emergency, Richard repeated. His smile was gone. His eyes were flat, like polished stone. You always were a soft touch, Harrison. Good night. The door clicked shut. Harrison stood, frozen. The front door opened, then closed. He was gone. Harrison lunged for the intercom. David. He knows. He knows about the girl. He's on the move. I want to tail on him. I want to know where he goes, who he calls, everything. Go. On it, sir. Team is in place. David's voice was ice. And sir, a message from the East Wing. From Elias Reed. It's urgent. What is it? The boy. Matthew. He told Chloe his full name was Matthew Ethan. And he said, the man with the ring. He told Sister Agnes to call him Matthew, because Ethan Cole is dead. Sir. Chloe said the boy heard the man. He called him Uncle. Harrison gripped the edge of the desk. Uncle. And there's more, David said. A location. The beach house. Chloe said Matthew remembered a white wooden bird that spun in the wind. He could see it from his bedroom. Harrison's gaze shot to a framed photo on the wall. It was the beach house. There, on the corner of the porch, was a white wooden seagull. A weather vane. He's there, Harrison whispered. My son. He's not just a ghost. He's there. Sir, Richard is on the move, David's voice cut in. His car is heading south, toward the coast. He's going to the beach house, Harrison said. No, Harrison said, his mind racing. The orphanage fire. That was a cleanup. Matthew ran away before the fire. Richard doesn't know where he was. He still doesn't know. He's not going to the beach house. He's going to find the one other person who knows the truth. Who? David asked. Sister Agnes, Harrison said, his voice lethal. The head nun. The one who took the bribe. Richard is going to silence her before we can find her. He was already moving, grabbing the keys to his car. David, find me that nun. I don't care what it takes. Find her before he does. I'm going to the beach house. I'm going to see that white bird for myself. Sir, you can't go alone. Let me send a team. No, Harrison roared. You get the nun. I get the house. We end this. Tonight. He strode out of the study, past the portrait of the smiling 4-year-old. For the first time in 10 years, Harrison Cole was not a ghost. He was a father, and he was going to war. In the East Wing, Chloe stood by the window, peering out into the dark garden. Did I do a good thing, Grandpa? She asked, her small voice full of worry. Elias Reed came and stood beside her. He placed his large, weathered hand on her shoulder. He could hear the distant, angry rumble of Mr. Cole's car engine fading down the drive. Chloe, he said, his voice deep and certain. The truth isn't just a shield. Sometimes it's a sword. He looked at his daughter and his brave granddaughter. You didn't just tell the truth, the old captain said. You just loaded the cannons. The night was dark. The house was quiet. But the silence was over. The hunt had begun. The furious growl of Harrison's sports car tore through the quiet suburbs. He was driving too fast. He didn't care. His mind was a sharp, clear instrument of rage. 10 years of fog had burned away. 10 years of numb, polite grief had been replaced by a white-hot certainty. Uncle. The word echoed in his skull. Ethan is dead. Call him Matthew. He had not just stolen a child. He had murdered a family. He had let his own sister die of a broken heart, all while knowing the truth. The betrayal was so profound, Harrison felt he might choke on it. His phone buzzed in the console. He hit the speaker. David. Sir, we've got him. David's voice was grim. Richard is heading east, on the old highway. He's heading inland, toward the county line. He's going for the nun, Harrison said, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. Sister Agnes. He's tying up his last loose end. We're on it, David said. Her name is Agnes O'Connor. After the fire, she was moved to St. Catherine's Retreat, a nursing home. Richard's checkbook paid for it. Of course it did, Harrison spat. He's been paying for her silence for 3 years. He's 10 minutes out from her. We are 5. We'll get her, sir. I promise. What's your status? I'm at the coast highway, Harrison said. The smell of salt was in the air. I'm almost there. I have to know, David. I have to see. Be careful, sir. We don't know what you'll find. The line went dead. Harrison turned onto the private, gravel lane that led to the beach house. He hadn't been on this road in 10 years. The weeds were high. The gate was rusted. He stopped the car. The house was dark, a silhouette against the moonlit ocean. He got out. The only sound was the crashing of the waves and the creak, creak, creak of something turning in the wind. He looked up. On the corner of the porch, just as Chloe had described, was a white wooden seagull, its wings spread. It spun in the salt breeze. He said he could see it from his bedroom window. Harrison's heart felt too large for his chest. He ran to the porch, fumbling for the old key on his ring. It stuck in the lock. He slammed his shoulder against the door. Ethan! The door burst open. The house was cold. It smelled of mildew, dust, and old memories. Ethan! He yelled, his voice cracking. Silence. Only the waves. He stepped inside. The furniture was covered in white sheets, like a row of ghosts. His hope began to crumble. He was too late. This was just another dead end. He was here, Harrison whispered. But he's gone. He walked, defeated, to the staircase. He had to see. He climbed the stairs, his feet heavy. He walked down the hall to his son's old room. The door was slightly ajar. He pushed it open. The room was bathed in moonlight. And someone was there. A figure, small and thin, was sitting on the edge of the child's bed, looking out the window, looking at the spinning white bird. It was a boy. He looked to be about 14. He was wearing old jeans and a dirty sweatshirt. His hair was long and dark. He heard Harrison and spun around, his eyes wide with fear. He scrambled to his feet, grabbing a small piece of driftwood, holding it like a club. Get out, the boy hissed. This is my place. Get out. Harrison stopped. He couldn't breathe. The boy was thin. He was terrified. But his eyes, they were his mother's. Bright, curious, and full of a light he thought was gone forever. I'm not here to hurt you, Harrison said, his voice a raw whisper. He held up his hands, slowly. Everyone says that, the boy said, his voice shaking. He was trying to be brave, but he was just a child. Who are you? How did you find this place? I used to live here, Harrison said, his eyes scanning the boy's face. This was my son's room. The boy's defensive posture wavered. Your son? His name was Ethan, Harrison said, his voice thick with tears. The boy's arm, the one holding the driftwood, dropped slightly. What did you say? Ethan, Harrison repeated, taking one small step forward. He had a dog. A big, brown dog. A Labrador. The boy stared, his mouth falling open. Buddy, he whispered. Yes, Harrison choked out. Buddy. He loved to chase the seagulls. He would bark and bark, but they were always too fast. The boy's face, so hard and wary, began to crumple. The memory was clear. It was his memory. How? The boy whispered, his eyes filling with tears. How do you know that? I was here, Harrison said, the tears now streaming down his own face. I was on the porch. I was watching you. The boy looked at Harrison. He saw the dark hair. He saw the searching eyes. You, the boy said. You're him, the man from the picture. The one I tried to draw. I am, Harrison said. He couldn't move. I'm your father. I'm Harrison. The boy just stared, the tears rolling down his cheeks. He had been alone for so long. He had run from the orphanage, found the sea gate, but it was too scary. So he had come here, to the only other place he remembered. He had been living in the ghost house for 3 years, surviving on what he could steal from nearby homes. Dad, the word was a foreign sound on his tongue. It was a prayer he had given up on. Ethan, Harrison sobbed. He didn't rush. He just opened his arms. The boy hesitated for 1 second. Then the driftwood clattered to the floor. He lunged forward, collapsing against Harrison's chest, his small, thin arms wrapping around his father's neck. Harrison held him, his entire body shaking. He held his son. He was real. He was alive. He was warm. I found you. Harrison wept into the boy's hair. Oh God. Ethan, I found you. 2 days later, sunlight streamed into the study. Harrison sat on the sofa. Ethan, who was still getting used to his own name, sat beside him. He was clean, dressed in new clothes, but he still looked at everything with a wary gaze. Across from them sat Chloe, Brenda, and Captain Elias Reed. Richard is in federal custody, Harrison said, his voice clear. He confessed. Everything. The kidnapping, the orphanage. He blamed me for Eleanor's unhappiness. He wanted to take the one thing that mattered. He never thought she would die from it. He's a monster, Brenda whispered, her hand on Chloe's shoulder. He will pay for what he did, Harrison said. So will Sister Agnes. She provided testimony in exchange for a reduced sentence. It's over. He turned to the old captain. Elias, your granddaughter. She's a hero. She saved my son. She saved me. I owe her a debt I can never repay. You owe her nothing, Mr. Cole, Elias said, his voice firm. She did what was right. The truth is a shield. It is, Harrison agreed. He then looked at Chloe. Chloe, you are the bravest person I have ever met. I want to set up a trust for you. For your education. Anything you want to be. A doctor, a lawyer, anything. It's yours. Chloe looked at her grandpa, who nodded. Thank you, sir, she said. I think I know what I want to do. What's that? Harrison asked. I want to find people, Chloe said, her blue eyes certain. Like you found Ethan. I want to find the ones who are lost. Harrison felt a real, genuine smile touch his lips. Then you will. Ethan, who had been silent, turned to Chloe. You were the little blonde girl. The one with the locket. Chloe nodded, blushing. You told me I wasn't an orphan, Ethan said, a new memory surfacing. You believed me, when no one else did. I remembered your eyes, she said softly. Harrison stood up. He looked at the portrait over the fireplace. Then he looked at the real, living boy beside him. This house has been a crypt for a decade, Harrison said. He looked at Brenda. Brenda, your job as a maid is, of course, finished. However, I am in need of an estate manager. Someone I can trust. Someone to help me bring this place back to life. The salary would be considerable. There is a 5-bedroom home on the property. It's yours. If you and your family would honor me by staying. Brenda looked at her father, her eyes wide with tears. Elias Reed looked at Harrison Cole. He saw a man who had been humbled. He saw a man who was, at last, a father. Elias nodded. We would be honored, sir. Later that afternoon, Harrison and Ethan stood on the grand terrace, overlooking the gardens. It was the first time they had been alone. It's big, Ethan said. It's too big, Harrison agreed. He put a hand, awkwardly, on his son's shoulder. Ethan, I'm sorry. I should have. I stopped looking. I gave up. Ethan looked up at this strange, powerful man who was his father. But you found me. No, son, Harrison said, his voice thick. He looked across the garden, where Chloe and Elias were walking. She found you. She found us all. A forgotten portrait held the key. But it was a child's truth, a memory that refused to be buried, that had unlocked the door. The grief was now a scar. For the first time in 10 years, the house was not silent. And Harrison Cole was not alone. And that's where we will end our story, a 10-year mystery, solved by the most unexpected witness. I hope this journey gave you a chance to drift for a bit, to get lost in the what-if. What were you doing while Harrison's world was turned upside down? I'd love to know if you were listening in the car, on a walk, or just getting cozy. Drop a line below. I read every comment, and your feedback is vital for us to improve. And if you want to make sure you're here for the next mystery we unravel, hitting like and subscribing makes all the difference. Thanks for spending this time with me.